Hello, Davy. Hello, hello.
Hello, good evening. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Just sucky.
Yay. Louisa will not likely be in until maybe later. She's at a field hockey game or something, I'm not sure, for her child.
Okay.
And Jyoti is in the midst of homework. So it's you and I this evening.
Okie dokie, artichoke. We can do that.
Absolutely, we can. Absolutely, we can. So how's your day today?
It's working with a new client, and it's always interesting working with a new client. They're very formal, and I am not.
Mm-hmm.
And my boss is asking me to move over to this new client, and I told her, like, I have to think about this. I said, you know my personality. They're finance people.
Mm.
Yeah, and I was just like, I don't know if artsy mixes with finance. I've not had luck before.
I would agree. Right there with you. Right there with you.
We'll see what happens. Like, I'm not pessimistic about it. My biggest concern is it is literally a brand new client, and I don't want to be the one to misrepresent the company.
Right.
So that's my hesitation.
Mm. Well, but if they're putting their faith in you, then
They're trying to groom me for a management position is what's happening. I'm like, oh, and it's an opportunity to work with all different types of people. Oh, darling, I've done that. You just weren't around when I did that.
So if they offered you that type of a position, would you take it?
It would depend on a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
It would depend on the who, what, where, and why.
Mm.
Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I don't see this happening anytime soon. So, Swamini in space.
Yay! Woo! Oh, goodness.
How was your day today?
It was good. It was busy. It was good. It was busy. There's just so much to do right now because we're kind of coming to the end of the season. And so like the gardens and mulching all of the gardens and cutting back, some of the flowering trees and whatnot, putting in some more garden boxes. There's all kinds of stuff, but I love it because I'm outside and yeah. So it's nice. It was a good day. It was a very good day.
You wonder how they used to do it back in the day, because we have all these modern conveniences, and they did it all by hand. And like, how did that even happen?
Yeah, they didn't have garden boxes. They just planted right into the ground.
There's a lot of stooping going on.
Oh my gosh, yeah. But I figured, right now what I'm looking at is making spaces where people can be by themselves or with whoever they came with so that they're not all congregating in one spot.
Smart.
Yeah, and so I've put in 2 decks and another sitting area outside. And then there's, by the garden boxes toward the front, I'm putting in some cylinder garden boxes, so some round ones next to it, and creating kind of an enclosed area there too, where there'll be chairs, tables, something along those lines for people. So yeah, and there's other projects too, and we've tentatively been awarded a grant, but I won't get it for about 8 months, and so it could be sooner, but it's probably going to be 8 months from now. And so there's a lot of planning going on with that too. So yeah, life is full. The mother is good. The mother just, she's so full of blessings. She really is. And I don't even, I just, at this point, I sit back and say, whatever you want, just tell me. That's it. Whatever you want. That's it. It's and it's amazing when you kind of take that attitude. You're just, you're just willing to do whatever the work is. And boy, does she give it to you. But in a beautiful way, in a beautiful way.
She doesn't seem to do anything like half measures, I've noticed.
Mm-hmm.
Is oh, you want this? Here you go.
Have some of this too, and some of this, and here's that. And pretty soon you're kind of like up to here, and it's like, oh, yeah. But it really is all a blessing, and it's just all amazing. And I try not to think too much about it, because when I talk about faith, I share with people that, according to the rules of this world, the ashram shouldn't be here. I mean, according to the rules of this world, Ed and I were not in a place to do this, financially or any other ways, but everything just aligned 1, 2, 3, 4. And, and as I said, every day I just, prayed to the mother and said, whatever you want me to do, put it in front of me and I'll do it. And when it's no longer in front of me, I'll know I am meant to do something else. And I trust that you'll tell me what that is.
So beautiful.
Yeah. And it's never not been that way. Yeah. It's never not been that way. So amazing. Oh.
It's a gorgeous thing. It never fails to fill me with light and hope and humbleness, because you just watch it, and it's a thing of beauty all on its own.
Yeah.
What an honor. Thank you.
Oh, and such an honor also with you, Devi, to witness your journey, and the way that you surrender, the way that you relate, the way that you are just devoted, is a beautiful thing. And students ask too, they say, what is it to have faith? What is it to surrender? And it's like, it's so hard to put that into words. Like, there's not really words, you just got to know that it's all really going to be okay. And that's not to say that it's not going to be a struggle. It's not going to be difficult. Some parts of it, are maybe even going to be really horrible, from a worldly perspective. True though, right? I mean, yeah. I mean, but then the reality is that, but after all is said and done, whatever you're meant to learn, you will. Whatever you're meant to experience, you will. And in the end, you put it all away and you just bow down to her feet and say, it's all yours. It's all yours.
I don't, trying to figure out a way to word this, because it's one of those things where it's like, you find it a blessing to bow to her feet. It's a relief.
Yeah.
I have to do this by myself anymore. I'm not responsible. All I'm responsible for is the correct action. And after that, I don't have to worry about anything else, because it'll work out how it'll work out. Once that arrow leaves that bow.
That's it. Absolutely. And for years, I went around thinking I had to do it. For years, like I carried my trauma and I carried my successes and I carried my failures and my fears and all of it. And I just kept thinking, I got to do this. I got to stand up. And then it was like, oh my God, no, I don't. I just have to be here. I just have to be here. And I just need to be here and be willing.
Yeah.
And then there's no failure. Because what is there to fail at? Yeah.
If you don't expect anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a big change though, because type A personality, hello. Totally, you know, and I think maybe of a lot of things that was a huge struggle was realizing that, you know, I'm not the author. I'm really not. And recognizing that it doesn't have to turn out a certain way at a certain time. Um, it's going to be what it's going to be. Yeah. And then just being grateful for the journey. It's
Yeah.
all so beautiful. I'm going to start letting people in.
Yep.
Okay.
I think that sounds like an excellent plan.
I don't have your bio, Davy.
Oh, good. I don't have to hear it again.
I'll say she is here. The goddess has arrived.
Embarrassed every time she hears it. She hated having to write it. She made Fred write half of it. So got through the paragraph and went, I can't do this. This is stupid. I don't care who I am. It doesn't matter what I've achieved. It only matters what they experience. After that, I don't care.
Yeah, well, it's true. It's true. Hello, everybody. Welcome. We'll get started in just a few minutes, just waiting for others to come on. And then we shall continue our week of bliss, blissful devotion. Hello, Savitri. How are you tonight? Very good to see you. And Sharon, very good to see you. And Stella, we have all the S's with us tonight. We'll wait a few more moments. Okay. Maybe one more minute, Davy, and then we'll get started.
Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody is doing well or good, whatever part of the day it is for you.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for the 6th night of Navratri. We're here coming together each night to adore the goddess, to learn about the goddess, to study the essence of the goddess, to celebrate the goddess, to invoke the goddess, to be with the goddess, to come into a deep, deep knowing and a deep exploration of her presence in our life and in this celebration. And so this evening, Jyoti needed to attend to some schoolwork, and so I will be emceeing. And so tonight's schedule is going to be 6:30 Homa with Dhyana Devi. 6:50, I'll be leading a meditation followed by a satsang, which we will be talking tonight about Katyayani Devi. And then at 8 o'clock, we have refuge and sadhana practice with Green Tara with Dr. Rachel Wooten. I'm so excited about that. I've heard Rachel speak before. We've had some great conversation. And so I'm certain there's going to be a lot there for everyone to enjoy and to learn. And then at 9 o'clock, we will have Kirtan with Tomomi Asano. She'll be live with us from Japan. So this really is a global movement. There are literally millions upon millions of people around the world adoring the mother, celebrating the mother, invoking the mother, and coming into a deep, deep surrender as we invoke her and as we celebrate her presence. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Diana Devi, the lovely Devi Katyayani. And everybody who's here now has been here all week. So I will just let Devi do her magic. And if she would like to say a few words ahead of time, she can. But she is a longtime practitioner. She is a devotee of Amaji. She is a splendid, splendid human being and an amazing spiritual being. She is my Anati, she's my spiritual sister. And it's just been an honor. It's been an honor to share this week with you. So I'll turn it over to Devi now. And so Devi, I think that oh no, you're unmuted. Okay, very good. There you go. So whenever you're ready, love.
God, no fair making me tear up. That was a rotten, dirty trick. But all my love to you, Swamiji. It's been such a pleasure knowing you. An unexpected pleasure. We weren't even. If I had initially had my way, we would have never met. And it begged me to come sing at your first Shivaratri at Kulakamala, because I had previous engagements, and I try to be a woman of my word. So my word is my bond. If I've said I'm going to do something for you, I'm doing it. So, but I made an exception because my friend begged. And here we are, what, 3, 4, you know me in time, years.
I think it's 4 years now. Yeah, it's about 4 years. Yeah. What a beautiful journey. You never know the direction the mother's going to lead us in, but she always leads us in one. Yeah.
What a pleasure. So thank you so much. Thank you for hosting. Thank you. Thank you everybody for joining. Pranams to you all. Thank you for being you. Without you, this can't happen. So my sincere and humble pranams to you for allowing me to serve you in this capacity. So we'll get going with the Homa. I typically don't like to talk about myself, so I'm not going to say any words about me. You've heard enough about me. But we'll get going with 3 Ohms, opening invocations, mantras to the fire, and please at any point in time, if you would like to offer anything into the fire, you are welcome to do so. Pray, 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 ball it all up, and then swaha. We'll get started with your Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha Hari Om Yayamo Navalava Mundavati Tejo Mahim Nishtaki Snigdhapam Gavilokanim Mandasmita Shri Mukhim Vatsalyam Ratavashanim Simadvaram Sankirtanalapanim Yamangi Madhusikta Suktim Amritanandatmikamishwari Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Deveshwara Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Om Vapratunda Mahakaya Suryakote Samaprabha Nirvighna Kuru Me Deva Sarvakareshu Sarvada. Om Swaha Abhinayedam Namah. Agnaye Swaha Abhinayedam Namah. Prajapataye Swaha Prajapatayedam Namah. Om Bhurbhuva Swaha Tatsavetovare Bhargo Devasya Dhimagi Yo Yona Prachodayat. Om Swaha Om Bhurbhuva Swaha Tatsavetovare Bhargo Devasya Dhimagi Yo Yona Prachodayat. Om Swaha Om Bhurbhuva Swaha Tatsavetovare Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. Om Swaha Om Trayambakam Yajamahi Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiv Bandhanam Mrityurmukshinamrita. Om Swaha Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushtivadhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormuktiyamamritat Om Swaha Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushtivadhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormuktiyamamritat Om Swaha Om Swaha Agnaye Idam Namah Bhava Swaha Vayavedam Namah Swaha Suryaya Idam Namah Bhurabhuva Swaha Prajapataye Idam Namah Om Devi Katyayani Swaha 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 Mantrahinam Priyahinam Bhaktihinam Ishwari Yadbhujitamaya Devi Paripurnam Dadasute Om Lokaha Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu Lokaha Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu Lokaha Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu Om Shanti 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 Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Let's the room off for meditation 6. Maybe back over to Swami. Namaskar.
Thank you, Devi. Another beautiful homa, another beautiful fire to ignite the tapas, the discipline within ourselves, as we come into an always deeper devotion and an always deeper inquiry into the truth of ourselves and of the universe. And so, welcome everybody. You all know me, so I'm not going to tell you anything about me. Just call me Swamini. That's all you need to know. And yeah, and so it's just such an honor to be sharing this night with you. So we're going to come into a little bit of a concentration practice now, a little bit of a prayer, a little bit of an internal inquiry. And so as we're sitting here, I'll invite you to come into 2 mudras. The first is with your left hand. So your left hand turns palm face up with the fingers together, and it rests on the back of your left thigh. And your right hand is palm face forward, fingers all together, and it is facing forward in front of your right shoulder. And this is the Abaya Mudra. So the left hand is in Varda Mudra, and Varda Mudra is the mudra of giving. It is the mudra of boons. It is also interpreted as the mudra of receiving, particularly in our instance as spiritual practitioners. We practice receiving what this life brings to us and offering all we are to a fuller expression of this life and to a fuller devotion to that which we pray to. And then the right hand, the Abaya Mudra, is the Fearlessness Mudra. And the Fearlessness Mudra is the quality that we seek to align with, that we express our devotion, that we express our love, that we express the giving and the receiving fearlessly, knowing that it is thine will, not my will. Thine will be done. So sitting nice and tall with the eyes closed, and just taking a few breaths here to center yourself, to ground yourself, and to check in with yourself and notice how you're feeling, what types of qualities you are carrying with you today, what sensations in the body and mind are showing up for you today. Maybe some of those things are comfortable and maybe some are not. And try not to judge what you discover. Just hold a space for it. Hold a space for it and offer it to the mother. Let her show you what it's all for. Breathing in, allow the breath to move through the body, receiving the beautiful gift of life, the gift of nutrients, oxygen, the gift of prana. And breathing out, feel that you are offering gratitude to the entire world, to the entire universe, and to the essence of Ma. Breathing in, practice receiving eloquently, gracefully, humbly. And breathing out, practice expressing your gratitude. Breathing in, receiving is such an honor. Yes, I receive this breath. I host this life. I steward this being gratefully. And breathing out, we follow through with that. We follow through with the expression. Take a moment now and just scan your heart. Bring your awareness to your heart. Take yourself on a journey through your heart and notice if at the very center of your heart something is arising, maybe an intention, maybe your own personal prayer, maybe a word, maybe an image, maybe a feeling. Whatever it is, hold a space for that. And keeping the eyes closed, resting the hands down into the lap. Beloved Mother, honor to thee, O great goddess, who gives security to the votaries. Rescue me, plunged in the mire of the world, that I appeal to thee for protection. Thou art the principle of life in all creatures. By thee this world moves. In the beginning of creation, Shiva beheld thee, self-produced, blazing and illuminating the world with a brightness that is hard to behold, like 10 million orbs of fiery, suddenly produced suns rising all at once, filling the whole horizon with the circle of thy arms, bearing a sword, a club, a bow, arrows, and a spear. And thou wast praised by that god Shiva in the following words. Hail to thee, Chandi, Chamunda, Mangala, Tripura, Jaya, Ekanansa, Shiva, Durga, Narayani, Saraswati, Bhadrakali, Mahalakshmi, Siddha, Slayer of Ruru. Thou art the Gayatri, the Maharajni, Revati, and the dweller in the Vindhya hills. Thou art Uma and Katyayani, and the dweller in Kailasha, the mountain of Shiva. When Skanda and Vashishta and Brahma and the others heard thee erased under these and other titles by Shiva, well skilled in praising, they also praised thee. And by praising thee, O adorable one, immortals, riches, and humans obtained and do now obtain boons above their desires. So be favorable to me, O bestower of boons, and do thou also receive this tribute of this sacrifice of my body, of my life, of my breath, of my being. May prosperity befall all. And keeping the eyes closed, sitting silently for the next few moments. And join me in chanting the mantra of the goddess, Om Devi Katyayani Namaha. Join me when you're ready, if you wish. Om Devi Katyayani Namaha. 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 I'm just sitting with that energy for a moment or two. And then very slowly, fluttering the eyes open. I'm just taking a moment to notice how you feel with your eyes open. Notice how it feels to awaken the senses after having heard one of the prayers to the mother, chanted one of her mantras, surrendered perhaps a little bit. Just notice what it feels. Where do your eyes go first? To what color? And how does it feel to have the eyes open? Are they soft with compassion, or are they stark and sharp? Do you feel comforted, as if you have received some relief? The mother is the great reliever. She brings to us the opportunity to rest. This is particularly important in the world today. I'm sure it's been important throughout time. Humans are such either overwhelmed or overachieving, and therefore overwhelmed, one or the other or both. Devi and I were having a great conversation before we opened up for this evening, and we were talking about how there is a time in life where we say to ourselves, I have to do this, I have to do that, I'm the one doing this, I'm the one succeeding, I'm the one failing. These are my dreams, my goals, my aspirations. It's all up to me. And we set ourselves up in many ways to have that experience of overwhelmedness, to have that experience of heaviness, because we isolate ourselves. We isolate ourselves and we forget that we actually invented nothing. There's no such thing as invention. It's just a word. I've had some pretty intense conversations around that. There's no such thing as invention. You cannot invent anything. You can only innovate. And innovation is the gift of the mother. The inspiration comes from her. She's the inventor. She's the one who said, trees, grass, children, mountains, water, streams, ocean, stars, moon, sun, sky. She's the one who invented. And we get to play in the playground that she built for us. We get to innovate as we make our way through her invention. So what is innovation? Well, innovation is acknowledging that all the ingredients are already here. There is nothing that can be created out of nothing. All the ingredients for anything that will ever exist is already here, are already here. And so, as we are coming to a place where we're writing a book, or creating a vaccine, or coming up with a solution to, hygienic water in certain areas of the world, or trying to decide, how to best feed the hungry. Everything that we need to solve those challenges is already there. It's just kind of like one of those. Remember one time I went up to New Hampshire to visit my mom, and we stopped up at a mall, and there was a person selling all different kinds of paintings and artwork, and he had one of these posters where you have to look at the poster, and it's like squigglies and maybe paisley or whatever designs are there, and you really have to look at the poster in order to try to see what the picture actually is. Have you ever seen one of those? Yeah. Oh, they're irritating, aren't they? Yeah. Well, this is life. You have a problem or a challenge, and you're looking at this picture, and you're thinking to yourself, I better invent something. But really, the answer is already there. The question is, are you focusing yourself properly in order to be able to see it and discover the parts and pieces of it to bring it together, to allow it to be a solution for you or for whatever challenge it is that you're addressing? So you and I, we are innovators. Ma is the inventor. When we come to understand that, we stop saying, I got to do this, I got to do that, I have to be a success, oh no, I'm a failure. We stop with that. And we back up a little bit. Maybe we find a place to kneel down, to bow down. And we send Ma a message. We say, whatever you want me to do, I'm here. Whatever you put in front of me, that will be my work. And whatever you take from me, that will be an indication that that work is now complete and it's time to do something else. And I trust that you will make that something else known to me. So we stop being the overachiever and the overwhelmed one. The beginning of the prayer that I read for you was, "O great goddess, honor to thee." If this was a prayer to any human being, it would be, "Oh great overwhelmed one." We're so overwhelmed. And in large part, it's because we have lost sight of her and of the need to acknowledge that we're not the ones inventing that we're just borrowing her grace for a little while. So we're here tonight to talk about Katyayani, the warrior. She is named Katyayani because she is from the tribe Katya. She was born into the family name, and so that became her name, daughter of Katya, Katyayani. And she is the warrior goddess. You know, she's often depicted with 4, 10, or 18 arms. The 4-armed variation is what we could call the more compassionate or gentle version. The 10 or 18 armed version is the warrior version, which of course she is still compassionate, but she has a job to do. She does it very, very well. Let me read this for you. This comes from the Katha Sarit Sagara. Viravara offered Durga this hymn of praise. After sacrificing his son for the benefit of a king in order to repay a debt that he had, Viravara's young daughter died of a broken heart because she lost her brother. And then his wife also, she requested that she be given permission to throw herself onto the pyre of her dead children because she saw no sense in living anymore. And so he gave her that permission, and she passed also. Her name was Dharmavati. Having repaid his debt to the king, and having lost his 2 children and his wife, he decided that it made no sense to live alone without them. He offered this prayer up to the mother, to Durga Ma, as he prepared to sever his own head. Now, imagine that for a moment before I read the prayer. As he prepared to sever his own head. Now, this is something that we see a few times in these teachings of the goddess. We actually see a form of the goddess who is standing there with her own head severed by her own sword. Symbolic of ridding yourself of the ego, symbolic of separating the ego self from the true self, from the real self. And even though we're talking about the ego in this moment, the unhealthy ego, of course, how difficult do you think that is? To pick up your own sword, sever your own ego, sever your own head. Oh, that's a pretty brave thing to do. It takes a certain kind of fearlessness in order to be able to do that. So here he is. He doesn't see any sense in continuing to live. He's grateful he had the chance to repay the king. Now he's preparing to sever his own head so that he can leave this earthly realm. And he says, "Honor to thee, O great goddess, who gives security to the votaris. Rescue me, plunged in the mire of this world, that I appeal to thee for protection. Thou art the principle of life in all creatures. By thee, this world moves. In the beginning of creation, Shiva beheld the self-produced, blazing and illuminating the world with a brightness that is hard to behold, like 10 million orbs of fiery, suddenly produced suns rising all at once, filling the horizon with a circle of thy arms, bearing a sword, a club, a bow, an arrow, and a spear. And thou wast praised by that god Shiva in the following words: Hail to thee, Chandi, Chamunda, Mangala, Tripura, Jaya, Ekanansa, Shiva, Durga, Narayani, Saraswati, Bhadrakali, Mahalakshmi, Siddha, Slayer of Ruru. Thou art the Gayatri, the Maharajini, Revati, and the dweller of the Vindhya hills. Thou art Uma and Katyayani, and the dweller in Kailasa, the mountain of Shiva. When Skanda and Vashishta and Brahma and the others heard thee praised under these and other titles by Shiva, the one well skilled in praising, they also praised thee. And by praising thee, O adorable one, immortals, riches, and humans obtained and do now obtain boons above their desires. So be favorable to me, O bestower of boons, and do thou also receive this tribute of the sacrifice of my body, my life, and may prosperity befall all. He was about to sever his own head as the sacrifice to the mother. And just before he heard a voice, and the voice said, "Do not act rashly, my son, for I am well pleased with this courage of thine. So crave from me the boon that thou dost desire." In other words, tell me what you would like. I am so touched by your courageousness that I will give you a gift. So he said, I would like my family back. And so she gave him his family back. The moral of this story, if you want to call it that, the lesson for us to learn here is that if we are willing to sacrifice everything, then we will also receive everything. Because Ma is not going to leave us with nothing. She sees and appreciates our devotion. She honors us, especially when we behave courageously, especially when we come into a deep devotion of her, especially when our prayers are sincere. And because he acted so honorably, she said, there is no reason for you to lose everything. So here's everything. I have to say that in my own life, I've experienced this. And many of you who know me know that I oftentimes share stories from my own life because really that's the way that every teacher teaches, is to personalize it. And maybe there's something somewhere along the way that you can identify with, and then you can draw it into your own either experience or intellect and do what you will with it. Devi and I were having a great conversation before we began the session tonight. And in talking about this, one of the things that I shared with her was something that I share a lot, was I said, you know, according to the rules of today's world, according to the rules of the way this world, this material world functions, this ashram really shouldn't be here. This ashram really shouldn't be here. And whenever I say that, inevitably somebody always asks me, well, what do you mean by that? Oh, this is what I mean by it. So my husband was a private contractor for the government, and he had a very wonderful career and a very successful career. He was very well respected in the work that he did. I have had a couple of different careers. I was a professor at university, and, you know, life was typical. It was good. We went to work, we came home, we spent weekends going places and, you know, practicing yoga every day and all of that. And then I got sick. And my illness changed my perspective quite a bit on many things. And then my husband got sick. And my illness was a tumor in my thyroid coupled with chronic Lyme disease. My husband's illness was colon cancer, stage 4. And the doctors told him that he had a year, told me that he had a year to live. So So there came a moment, and it was a very, very quick moment, where we kind of looked at each other. And I said to him, that's it. Things need to change now. And they're going to change. And we walked away from our home. Our mortgage company was very wonderful. I called them, talked to them, explained to them what happened. And they actually bought the home back from us. So we let go of our house. We got rid of 80%, maybe 85% of everything we owned. We either gave it away, donated it. We had a couple of yard sales, didn't really know where we were going or what we were doing, but we just knew that we needed to clean house. So we got rid of nearly everything that we had. I mean, when we moved, all it required was borrowing someone's truck. That was it. We moved from a 4-bedroom house to a 1-bedroom apartment, where I must say the maintenance crew was wonderful, because they did everything, that as a homeowner you would typically have to do. And so Ed, myself, our cat, and our dog in a 1-bedroom apartment, which was very lovely and very quiet. And we really didn't have anything, because now at that point in time, he's no longer working. He's on disability. And I'm his caregiver primarily, and I'm still working. I had the yoga studio at that time, and the yoga therapy programs that I was running around New Jersey. But that, that's a labor of love. That's not a big money-making career. So we had very little. Had a little 401, what is that, 401k, little bit for later. And then a Saturday morning came, and I had been talking with Ed for quite a while about finding a place to establish an ashram. With the blessings of my guru, he said, do not put it near a city, have it where people need to drive to you. He said, have it in a place where it's quiet. And so, following all of his guidance, Saturday morning, my husband said to me, you want to see this? And he was looking at his computer. And I knew what he was saying, but he kept showing me properties that were like $3 million, $5 million. And I said, no, I don't. Not if it's like, why are we looking at that? He said, no, you really want to see this. So, half believing I really wanted to see it, I took the computer from him. And I looked at it, and it was the ashram. It was an old elementary school that was up for auction on eBay at a very, very ridiculous starting price. And by that, I mean somewhere that we could afford. And that would be all that we could afford. So that Saturday, we called, we met the school representative out here, walked through the building, and I turned around to him and I said, we're home, this is it. And he said, don't you want to think about it? I said, no, I don't need to think about it. The message is clear. This is exactly where we're meant to be. So let's do this. So we went down to a little local vegetarian place, and we're texting this person who has a business called Gold Nugget Realty, right? I mean, and my husband, if you knew him, you knew he was a little bit, he's a conservative in regard to, he wasn't one to go out on a ledge. So he was constantly like, well, what if this person's not a real person? Should we really be having this conversation? And I said, no, it's all okay, really. This is exactly where we're meant to be. This is it. So we had just enough. We came to an agreement with the person selling it. We had just enough to buy it. But we didn't have any water in the building because the main line was broken. We didn't have any heat in the building. And mind you, this is March, so it's really cold here in March. We didn't really have anything. And I kept praying, and I kept saying, Mom, if this is where you're sending me, just let me know what to do. Let me know what to do. How do we do this? And so one person came forward and said, what are you doing? How can I support you? What do you need? Another person came forward. What are you doing? How can I support you? Another person came forward who I didn't even know. I heard what you're doing. You're either crazy or brilliant. It's not me, it's Ma. Call her crazy, call her brilliant. And all the students, whoever came through the doors, and fundraisers, and everyone sharing a vision of a sanctuary. And we got our water line, and we got our heat fixed, and we got the place painted. I actually painted it. Ed and I did a lot of the work here ourselves. My point in telling you this is to say to you that we had, according to the rules of this material world, nothing. It makes no sense. If you live your life by the rules of this material world, this ashram shouldn't be here. But your spiritual growth, your journey, your life does not play by the rules of the material world. It moves by the dance of the mother. And she has always, and I make it emotional, as I have been, she has always sent very clear instruction, direction, and support. But the thing I had to get over first, though, was this idea that I was doing anything. Because if I had held on to that idea of being the doer, I would have never have had the faith that this could have happened. Because we're told, especially in the United States, but across the world as well, you don't have enough money saved up. You're not rich. You're not wealthy. People are going to think you're nuts. And I kid you not, people did tell me that. And what I said to them in response was, I'm not concerned with what other people tell me. I'm only concerned with where the mother directs me. What are you concerned with? Can you put down the need to be the doer for a little while? And can you just listen for the sweet messages, the sweet directions that she sends you, that she is always sending you? So she is also called the warrior goddess. She is the one who incarnated on earth as the daughter of Katyayani, and she shows us the power of personal effort and devotion by her own example. By her own example, she was brought forth to eradicate the evil doings of Mahishasura. We've talked about him this week. That great, great, great ego, that wicked ego, that unhealthy ego, what we call a demon, the thing we all have. She was brought forth to eradicate that evil, to not allow it to stand any longer. So she comes forward again in her gentle form, her subtle form. She has 4 arms. In 2 of them, she's holding lotus flowers, which are a reminder of purity, a reminder of the necessity to be pure in our intention, to be pure in our devotion, to be pure in our thoughts. And I don't mean Puritan-like pure, I mean well-intended. Well-intended. Offering it. This isn't for me, it's for thee. This is not my will, this is thine will. I have ownership over nothing. I am simply your vehicle. Just like Ma, and here to my side you see Katyayani sitting on the lion, just as the lion carries her wherever it is that she would like to go and protects her, I too will carry the mother wherever she likes to go. And I will be the protector and the steward of her intention, just as I hope you are. And I know many of you are. When she's seen with 10 or 18 arms, then you start to see the assembly of weapons. She holds a lotus still. And she also holds Shiva's trident, Vishnu's discus, Varuna's shanka or conch shell, Agni's dart, Vayu's bow, Surya's quiver, Indra's thunderbolt, Kumara's mace, which is a bit like a club, Brahma's mala and his water pitcher, Kala's sword, and Vishwakarma's axe. And these are all her weapons. And she's there again in this fierce form to put an end to that which is bringing evil and darkness to the world, that's bringing harm to the world, Mahishasura. In the form of Katyayani, when she's holding the sword, it can be a reminder to us that our bhakti, our devotion, is not just about the rainbow and the unicorn and the softness and the sweetness. We talked a bit about this last night too, but this is particular to Katyayani, that our devotion requires self-sacrifice. It requires that we cut away those things that impede our spiritual growth. And so again, Vishwar is getting ready to cut off his own head, getting ready to make the sacrifice of ridding ourselves of that which holds us back. So the Devi Katyayani went to the Vindhya mountains where Mahishasura lived. And he was an interesting demon because he was born from a union between Ramba, the king of the Asuras, and Mahishi, a princess who was cursed to be a water buffalo. And because his parents were different species, he actually was born with the ability to shapeshift between those species. He could appear as a buffalo, or he could appear as an asura in a human form. And so a great battle took place, and she ended Mahishasura by beheading him with her sword. So she cut the ego out. She cut the ego out. But not before giving him plenty of time and opportunity to come to the realization of his own mistakes, of his own ways of harming, his own ways of violating the yamas and the niyamas, the virtues of life. She gave him every opportunity to come into alignment with his dharma. But when the moment came and she realized, it's enough, he's not going to. The humility is not there. Then out of her grand expression of compassion, she ended his suffering. She ended his suffering. She did not end him out of hate. She did not end him out of what we would call anger or vengeance. When we look at the battle between Durga Ma and the Asuras, what we recognize is that when she ends them, when she ends those tendencies, she's doing it out of love and out of compassion so that their suffering ends. And the idea is that, and it's a little bit complicated, so I'll keep it kind of brief, is that when we're talking about a person's life, karma and dharma, a person is born into a certain temperament and a certain tendency in this life based on the karmas that have been accumulated through past lives. And so they come here with some unique combination of karmas that need to be worked through and resolved, and behaviors that need to be taken part in order to prompt or move one's own self or others forward. That's the spiritual agreement that we have with each other. And so here we have this being, this Mahishasura, who is here playing out his own karma, and maybe not coming into any great alignment with the resolution of that karma or with his dharma. And the dharma is simply to live dutifully, to be a good steward of this life that has been given to you, to express and experience devotion, to be of service to others, to live in alignment with the natural laws of the universe, and thereby the natural laws of that divine consciousness that brought this universe forward. But he wasn't doing any of that. He was behaving in a way that was greedy and harmful and hateful. Now, in many traditions within India, when we start talking about reincarnation, death is actually something that, yes, there's a lot of sorrow and grief associated with it, but there's also a lot of celebration. And the reason why there is some celebration with regard to death is because the individual, A, is free for a little while from the pain and suffering of this life, and B, is going to come back again. And so we take time and we pray that they come back into a position better than they left, or level to what they left, but not less than what they left. So let Mahishasura come back in his next life in a better condition. Maybe not the same condition. And I don't know if you can get much worse. What's required for that? What is required for an individual to come back in the next life in a better condition? Well, a few things. But for the purposes of our talk tonight, we'll say that the end of life, the qualities in the end of life matter. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, you live your life by jnana, you study. You study and you study your scriptures, you study the divine, you come into knowing that through your knowledge base, through wisdom. If you can't do that, then you can practice karma yoga through your entire life, selfless service to all, feed the hungry, shelter those with no shelter, take care of the ill, selfless service, be of service to the divine. See the divine in all beings and see all beings in the divine, and then serve them. And if you can't do that, then he gives a few different options. Finally, he says, devotion, just love me. Through your entire life, just be devoted to me in every moment. And if you can't do that, then there's one more thing you can do. When you die, think of nothing but me. And if you think of nothing but me, then your soul will be free from the cycle of birth and death. But just as we talked about earlier, about what kind of strength and courageousness does it take to sever one's own head or one's own ego, what kind of strength does it take that your last thought would be purely God, with no regret, resentment, or worry about anything else at all. Only a pure, pure love. Ram, 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 Ram. Om Shri Durgaye, Om Shri Durgaye, Om Shri Durgaye. Shakti Ma, Shakti Ma, Shakti Ma. So this is the way that you set up the rebirth to come back in a position better than what you left. So Ma gave Mahishasura every opportunity to become humble in her presence, to set himself up for a better rebirthing. But of course, he was too ignorant. He couldn't see it. Here's a little story that you might be able to really identify with. So there was a monk, a Votari, a monk, And he lived in the woods by himself. And he had a few other monks that would come out and check on him every once in a while, made sure he had some food, bring him some offerings. But basically, he was isolated. And this was his devotion in his life. He stayed in the forest, he chanted his prayers, and he spent his time knowing God. He wanted nothing. He had no objects that he was attached to, nothing at all. He was out there for many, many, many years. And then one day, while he's sitting in meditation, just praying to God, he hears a little rustling over in the bushes, and he opens his eyes and he sees a little baby deer. And the little deer appears to be injured, and the mama deer is nowhere to be found. So he gets up out of his meditation and he takes the deer, and he sees that she is injured, so he tends to her injuries. And he tends to her, he feeds her, he keeps her warm. The winter months were coming. And he says, oh, I'll just, I'll let her stay here over the winter. She can stay in the shelter. She'll be safe. In the spring, she'll go. Before the cold months came in, one of the monks that would bring him items that he needed, make offerings to him, came and said, why do you have a deer? That's a little strange. Maybe you should just let her go. And he said, no, she's too little. She'll probably perish if we let her go. So we'll just let her stay for the winter, and then she can go in the spring. Okay, you know best. Now, mind you, one thing about this monk is that he had been practicing his whole life for his last breath. Ram, 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 Ram. That was his mantra. And he chanted it all day, every day, Ram, 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 Ram. But now the deer was there. So he would chant, Ram, 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 Ram. Have to go feed the deer. Okay. Ram, 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 Ram. Feeding the deer. Okay. Back to the Ram. Ram, 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 Ram. All through the winter. Spring comes. His friend, the monk, comes back. And he says, the deer is still here. He says, oh, it's okay. It's okay. Just let her stay. She doesn't want to go now. She's attached to me. So whatever. I still am fine. No worries. And then he says, well, you've worked really hard to not have anything, that's going to distract you in your final moments. And you could have that liberation. And he says, I'm not distracted. It's perfectly fine. So a few years go by and the monk becomes older. And of course, with age, the body begins to break down and begins to prepare itself for that moment of transition from this life into whatever lies beyond. The monk comes to visit him and says, so you're preparing now. You're preparing for this, and I'll be here for you. And the monk said, well, I have a question for you, though. And he said, what is it? He said, you must promise me that you'll take care of that deer. Because, she's so accustomed to humans now, she'll never survive if she goes out into the forest by herself. So please promise me, and then my mind will be clear, and I will have nothing else to concern myself with. And so the monk promised him. He said, I will take the deer. I will take care of the deer. You have nothing to worry about. A little bit more time passed. It was his time. The monk came to sit by his bedside. And as he's lying there preparing for his last breath, the monk is chanting, Ram, 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 Ram. His breath is becoming very heavy, and it's very difficult for him to enunciate anything, but he's still Ram, Ram, Ram. And he grabs hold of the monk's hand, his friend, the monk, and he opens his eyes and he says, the deer, and he died. His last thought was not Ram, it was the deer. So the story goes that he was then reincarnated as a deer, because that's what his last thought was. So he set himself up for his next birth. And his next birth, he came back as that which he thought of in his last moments. So knowing this, we can live in a way that empowers our last thoughts in this life to be love, to be Durga, Shakti, Kali, Shiva, Ram, Christ, whatever name it is that calls to your heart. And if you chant that name over and over and over and over and over again, eventually you're going to absorb the quality that that name stands for. You know, Jesus was the human's name. Y'all know that? Jesus was the human's name. After he resurrected, he became the Christ. Christ is light. So if you think to yourself, Christ, 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 the Christ, the Christ, the Christ, Jesus Christ, Jesus the Christ, then what you're saying to yourself is the divine light, the divine light, the divine light. And eventually repeating that enough times, you begin to take on the qualities of that. And that becomes the guiding principle in your life. And as the guiding principle in your life, that is what sets you up for your death. I know that's a hard topic, but none of us are getting out of it. I've never met a person yet who did, you know. And that quality in our last moments in this life sets us up for the next one. Now, if you don't believe in reincarnation, that's perfectly fine too. I'm not telling you have to. That's my, that's where my heart goes to is that I see not only the logic in that, but I also see the promise in it. But you can also take this to your day-to-day living, because every moment is a little death, is it not? How many times will you wake up the next morning not fulfilling the promises you made to yourself the night before? So we can look at this in our day-to-day living and say, you're sick and tired of your suffering? Start chanting. Start praying on a very consistent basis and allow the quality of those prayers, of those chantings, to fill you with something else other than fear and worry and, self-hate or hate of others. Allow those prayers, those chantings, the essence of the Divine Mother to fill you with enthusiasm to try something new, to let go of the idea that you're the one doing it all, and instead maybe surrender and see where that brings you to, see where that takes you. So another thing about Katyayani is that in the Bhagavat Purana, it says that young women of a marrying age actually look very much to Katyayani as an avenue to acquire a husband, and to acquire a husband who is very much like Krishna. So to acquire a good husband. Now, why on earth would we jump from Mahishasura to Katyayani being, the aspect of the goddess that will get you a decent husband? Because that's in one part the way this all started, is that Mahishasura was wreaking havoc in the world. And when Durga came forward, she disguised herself as a cowherd girl. And that enticed Mahishasura because he heard reports about her beauty and about how stunningly radiant she was. And as an authoritarian tyrant, he wanted her. He wanted her to be his wife. And he sent his assistant, his messenger to her and said, tell her, come here now and become my wife. And tell her that she will have whatever she wants. She will have all the riches, she will have all the power, but if she doesn't come, she will have all the misery. So he's not a good husband, not good material for a husband. not in any way, shape, or form. Too tyrannical. So Katyayani puts an end to that tyranny. And now the young women can go to her and say, bring someone forward who's pure, pure-hearted, capable of loving, capable of seeing me, capable of serving you, Divine Mother. Bring me someone like Krishna. Bring me someone like Krishna. She's also seen on a lion, as I mentioned earlier, and we've talked previously about how the lion represents, a wild beast. And yet here she is, sitting very comfortably. She's not holding reins. She's not holding on for dear life, The lion is completely tame under her. And so this illustrates for us that she knows, or it goes beyond knowing. She is the power of that which is reckless and wild. She is also the power of that which is peaceful and serene and sincere. And if we give all of ourselves to her, then we are promised the experience of peace, serenity, sincerity, her grace. All we need to do is come into service of her. And then just kind of revisiting again this thought about bhakti. Actually, a little interesting note is that tonight, let's see if I can find this note that I wrote for myself, the 6th day of Navratri is meant to coincide with the moon in Anuradha. So Anuradha means, the word itself means following desires. But the moon, when it is in Anuradha, horoscopically, that's the right way to say it, it indicates a deep faith. So it indicates that tonight you may experience within yourself, given the way that the stars and the moon are aligning, you may have a spontaneous experience of faith. You may have a spontaneous experience of devotion on a depth that you have not or have rarely experienced before. So this 6th lunar day, which is governed by Venus, can influence that experience of deep devotion, as well as an accompanying willingness to annihilate your ego, at least for a little while. At least for a little while. So I'll open it up there and say, does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask, or any reflections that they would like to share? And you can put your hand up, or you can just unmute yourself and say hi. I'll give everybody a moment or two.
I always found the final instruction for devotion from Bhagavan Krishna almost like a catch-22, because in order to think about God on your deathbed, you have to think about God your entire life, unless you are God is extremely gracious to you.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. It's like, okay, great. So it's my intention to think about, the goddess in my last breath. But look at this monk who spent his whole life practicing Ram, 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 Ram. And all it took for him to become distracted was a deer. Look at how easily we become attached, especially to sweet things, right? Especially because deer, they're sweet. They're very sweet. They're very cute and adorable. And we think, oh, how can that be harmful at all? Of course, he should take care of the deer. Of course, he should support and care for that which needs caring. But in addition to that, one needs to remember that the tendency of the ego is to send its tentacles out and to grab onto whatever it is that's available. Even the idea, and this is where it kind of like, it really gets pretty intense. It's like, even the idea that I'm practicing Ram, 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 Durga, 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 Kali, 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 so that I can have so that I can have liberation. That's also an attachment. Yeah, what is my motivation? Is my motivation for chanting all of this so that I can, you know, either escape the birth-death cycle or be born into a much better position as far as my spiritual practices go? It's got to be love, right? It's got to be love. If it's not love, what is it? It's ego. If it's not love, it's ego. Yeah.
That's interesting, Swamini Ji, that you should say that, because that's something I always wrestle with when the idea of setting a sankalpa or doing a sadhana for something particular, because is it like cash and carry? I'm going to do these mantras and then this is going to happen to me. I don't want my practice to be that way, but sometimes maybe it is. Maybe it is.
Yeah, and for all of us, Savitri, you know, we're very human, aren't we?
Yeah.
I mean, we are. We're very human, and the reality is that because we're so human, sometimes we need incentive. And so, one very big incentive is the reduction of suffering in this world, in this life, in this body, in this mind. That's a huge incentive. Another incentive is, you know, to receive boons. And I believe it might have been Devi last night, or perhaps it was Nishchala, who talked about how some people approach Lakshmi Ma for the boons. You know, she's the goddess of abundance. So could I have a car? Could I have some extra money? Could I have some of your abundance? So the intention there is to receive. And it's very important that we have the capacity to receive. But the quality of the receiving matters too, you know? And the thing that escapes us much of the time, being that we are so very human, is that love is the reduction of suffering. Love is the reduction of suffering. So Ma, let me just love you. Let me just love you. Yeah. Thank you, Savitri. Would you like to follow that up with any other thoughts?
Only in that, so today in my sadhana, going back to what, and not to make it about me, but that idea of what you discussed last night of kind of, you know, doing the self-reflection through the yamas and the niyamas. And just when you think like your sadhana has made you so self-compassionate, when you see where your flaws are, and then you have like all this judgment about being a human.
Yeah.
It was a great exercise because I was like, oh, I guess I'm still self-critical. Not in a good way.
It's all stages, you know, we go through these stages and phases, and it's okay. It really is. But it's helpful if we can look at it in such a way as to recognize the phase that it is and not be attached to it. So oftentimes students will come forward and say, oh, you know, I've been practicing for 5 years. I should be past this by now. I've been practicing for 1 year. I should be past this by now. I'm like, let's just say you're 50. You've been practicing this for 1 year. What were you practicing for 49 years? Because that's a much deeper groove in the record of your life. And so it's going to require there to be a much deeper, intense sadhana in order to rewrite a groove like that. That's 49 versus 1, you know? So to look at it and to say, well, this is my tendency. You know, my tendency is to be this, to do this, to react this way. And I recognize that that's my tendency, but I also recognize that I have options now. I have options, and I'm going to explore those options. I'm going to explore those options openly and honestly while I'm also experiencing my humanness. And it may drive me a little bonkers, but hey, you know, and then we don't have to come into that, at least not as much, into that space of, oh man, how come I'm not further along? You know, because it's the point. The point of it is to reconcile the karma. So that's a process. Yeah, really wonderful thoughts. Thank you. Devi, you look like you want to say something.
My eyebrow itches. That's really it.
Oh, there's wisdom in that statement somewhere. Yeah. Would anybody else like to reflect or to ask any questions? Okay, if at any point in time you have a question or a reflection that you would like to share, you can also always put it into the chat. And so now I would like to take a moment to introduce our next speaker. We have with us tonight the wonderful Dr. Rachel Wooten. Rachel is a PhD. Let me just get back to that. I've just lost my notes. One moment. Goodness gracious. It's here, I promise. Here we are, okay. So Rachel Wooten, PhD, is a Zurich-trained Jungian analyst and psychologist who has been in private practice as a therapist for more than 40 years. As a child, Rachel was drawn to different religious expressions and followed her instincts to study and practice in different traditions. Her interests in human consciousness led her to the field of psychology. Given its limitations for encompassing the whole of the individual, she began Jungian studies and a deep dive into spiritual practices for her own healing, for that of her clients and members of her community. She's the author of the book Tara, The Liberating Power of the Female Buddha, and you can learn more about her at her website, rachelwootenauthor.com, and I'll post that in the comments for everybody as well. And it is my great honor to say hello again and to welcome Rachel. And so Rachel, I have made you a co-host so that if you want to share any slides or anything like that, you certainly can. And I'm just gonna find, there you are. And I'm gonna spotlight you now as well. Hello, so good to see you.
Hi, it's good to see you again. It's great to be here.
Welcome, welcome. The floor is yours.
Okay, well, the only slide is the background. So Tara is the slideshow. So I'm really glad to be here. And I just think it's a wonderful opportunity to talk about Tara in a little bit different setting than I'm used to talking about Tara. So one thing I want to say about this practice, what I'm going to do is just talk a little bit about Tara, and then we'll do a traditional sadhana practice that comes from the Kriya Tantra of Tibetan Buddhism. So it has a certain formula that you go through, and I'm sure like other sadhanas that you all are doing, and each step has its own sort of precious momentum that it adds to the practice. But the real thing, I'm going to guide you through that part, but the thing that we will do together is chant the mantras at the end. And I like to do it 108 times. I have a mala. I don't know if you all have them, but I like to do it 108 times so that you really get the resonance of the vibration in your body. And then after the mantra recitation, we'll just rest in that, both that silence and that resonance. So I think everybody's probably muted, and I would ask that you stay muted because you know what happens if we try to chant together. Zoom just won't do it. So anyway, I'm just going to say a few things about Tara. I think we have about an hour. Is that right? So I'm going to say a few things about Tara and then do the sadhana so I can leave some time at the end for questions if people have it. And if we run over a little bit, that's okay with me, but you may have something coming right after this. So what I want to say again about this, this picture of Tara, which is a very traditional Tibetan Buddhist rendering of her. and you will see that she has a right foot forward, and that is really the classic cue. Anytime you see a tanka of one of the Tibetan meditation deities, if that right foot is forward, you know it's Tara. And that really means that she's ready to come to our assistance just like that. And yet you see the other leg is bent in the meditation pose, which means when she comes to our assistance, she's coming out of that place of vast wisdom and compassion. And then her right hand is open in the gesture of supreme giving, which means she gives us everything, including full awakening. And then her left hand is at her heart in the gesture of refuge. So that particular refuge practice, as I have known it from Tibetan Buddhism, is going to be part of what leads us into the sadhana. So I won't say a whole lot about it now. I think what I'm going to do is, when we do it, is sort of explain it as we go, so we don't have explanations and then the sadhana. But I want to say this. The very famous story about Tara that comes from Tibetan Buddhism, which is much later than her origins in India, has to do with a young woman, a princess named Wisdom Moon, who was clearly emanating so much power and so much love and compassion for all beings that these monks noticed her, and they went to her and they said, "My goodness, you're just on the verge of enlightenment." I think they probably were thinking, "Too bad you're not a man." But anyway, what they said to her was, "You should transform yourself on the spot into a man," which gives you a little clue about the shamanic culture of the time. "Or you should pray to become a man in your next lifetime, and you'll become instantly enlightened." So she paused for a minute, and then she gave them a little teaching about the Dharma, which is shunyata. It's empty of any one particular thing. So gender is an empty concept. So it couldn't possibly be true that only a man or only a woman could become enlightened. So she said that first. Then she also said, "And I've noticed that there are no female Buddhas." And then she made this very, very, very famous vow that she would only become awakened in a female body. And she did over eons through her liberating powers and helping of other people. She woke up, but she went on to become a female Buddha in this tradition. So, I think it's amazing. I'm pretty sure the roots of this story are in India, but this story is told in this sort of classic Tibetan way. And what it does is it tells you that at that time, certainly in Tibet, but I think in India too, the idea was you couldn't become enlightened unless you were a man. And so, I've thought about this story so many times, I've told it so many times, but I never get used to it. Even now I can feel tears coming into my eyes, really, because the courage, and also I would think the self-confidence, the stability she must have had in herself to know the truth, regardless of what the male authorities were saying. And she was sort of bypassing the ticket to eternity, so to speak. But so anyway, I think it's an incredible story. And I think it didn't do the women of that time much good. But the story has persisted to this day. So, if you think about its origins being well over 1,000 years ago, and it has persisted to this day. And so we have it now, and we have it now as women who are needing to step into our own confidence and our own abilities and our own wishes to help relieve suffering for others. So I like to always bring that story of Tara to the forefront, because that story is behind this image. And then the other thing I like to think, especially for this group, is to really name that Tara comes from India, and that she's quite different. This is a little bit tamer than you might find her in some of the Indian versions, although I think she's more akin to Durga. So she is closer to that sort of loving, less Kali-esque energy, although there's some emanations of Tara that are quite Kali in their forms. But, you know, if you were to look, I put up this tanka also of the 21 emanations of Tara. And if you were to look at some of the praises of each of those emanations, you would instantly recognize the language coming from India and the language coming from shamanism. And so when I did some work to trace Tara's roots even further back than India, I think she really goes back to, her roots are really in Sumeria, like probably 4,000 years ago. But for our purposes tonight, I really wanted to name her roots in India, and that these practices really evolved because groups of people who are evolving Tantra in the Hindu tradition and in the Buddhist tradition were practicing together in southern India. So it wasn't all separate. And so I think I'll just read this praise of the green Tara at this point in the conversation. Her praise says, all gods and non-gods bow down, touching their crowns to your lotus feet. You remove all forms of poverty, both material and spiritual. I prostrate to the Mother Tara. So even that reference there to the gods and non-gods takes you to India. Anyway, so I think that was one point that I wanted to make. And then I wanted to also just mention her mantra, which we're going to say. And I guess, you know what, I can put that in the chat box myself. Om Tari Tu Tari Turi Soha. Let's see. There we go. So if you were to really study that mantra, you would find an infinite number of deep meanings, but any meaning is fantastic. And so just to say that the most immediate meaning is that her name Tara in Sanskrit means star. And it's really referring to particular stars, the northern star. It's the star that really we navigate by. And so this mantra was developed, you know, in an ancient time when that would have been the meaning of this, of her name, and that she actually takes us to the places that we can cross over that are the easiest places to make the crossing. Tutare can be translated as supreme joy or happiness. And that happiness, which you'll hear that again in a few minutes, really means the extraordinary joy that spontaneously arises when you actually truly understand the meaning of shunyata, or the absolutely phenomenal, inconceivable level of interrelatedness of all things. And that we are in no way separate beings, that we are here because of countless other beings that we're formed by and with. So that tutare refers to that joy when you understand that. And turi means swift one. And soha, of course, means so be it. So the mantra is really, you're just calling on Tara to come immediately and lead you to that place of supreme joy. So she's our guiding star. So in a way, it's a very, very simple mantra compared to some others that can be found in places. And so it's really easy to say, and it's really easy to get in a cadence with it. So I just invite you to enjoy it when we get to that place. Yeah, I was just trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to say about that. I think that the mantras themselves are actually the essence of the deity. So in the recitation of the mantra, it's like you're going deeper and deeper and deeper into that essential energy, because the mantra carries that essential energy. So Tara is really, she has two claims to fame in the Tibetan pantheon of meditation deities. And one of them is that she helps to eliminate all fears. And the other one is that she just comes to help us immediately. So she's also what they call a karma deity or an action deity. So you get that when you get that level of action that she's going to come to help us. So this prayer evolved for me. I don't know where it came from. You know how things come, and there they are. Well, I was asking for help in a certain situation, and all of a sudden this sequence came to me, which was, help me, help me, help me. And I wasn't even sure. So sort of like, I need you to tell me what I need to ask for. I'm not even sure what the thing to ask for is. Just please help me. And then the next part of the prayer was, please help me see that you have helped me. Sometimes we miss it, right? Because it doesn't come in exactly the form we wanted it. So then the last part of it is, then help me become the help. And I think that is really the essence of Tara. It is like that energy, that universal mothering, nurturing, compassionate, wise, and powerful energy that will come to our assistance if we call on her. And so we need to call on her. So that makes it like a self-care practice. But we also need to become Tara in the world, especially now. Things are a little rough in the world right now. So then we need to become the help, but not on our own, 2 cents worth, right? We really need her help if we're going to become the help. So that's my 3-part prayer. And the last thing I'll say before we go into the practice is that when we go through what the Tibetans call the preliminary prayers, which is taking refuge, reciting the Bodhisattva vow, and saying the 4 immeasurables, that is really a practice unto itself. You could do that and not even go through all the sadhana steps. You could do those 3 prayers and then recite the mantra for a while, and that would be a full practice in and of itself. So I just want to mention that, and that this series of refuge prayers really is to remind us of all the help we have, that we really can ask for it, and that we really must seek places of refuge. Things are quite dicey in the United States. I'm imagining most people on the call are from the United States. I don't know, but and it's going to get even harder, I think, and that's kind of hard to imagine. So if I liked what you were saying a few minutes ago, like we have to get used to receiving, right? We're not very good at that sometimes. So thinking I'm going to purposefully do a practice that gives me a place of refuge is a place of receiving love. And then it also gives us a place where we can really pray for the well-being of all people, the benefit of all people. So I want to say that I think this is both a practice of self-care and also a practice of care for the world, and that neither one needs to be excluded. So I think having these places of refuge can really help us in these times not shut down and also not be on high alert all the time. I think there's some real pitfalls in our collective consciousness right now. So I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to be offering this practice in this context, but also at this time. So I think we should move into the practice. And really, I would just say most people prefer to shut their eyes. Some people just like a soft gaze. But whichever you prefer, try to really just relax, because you don't have to do anything. I'm going to really lead us through these steps. And then when we get to the mantra recitation, that's the part where, you can really join in. But even that can be extremely relaxing and like a salve to the nervous system. So I just really invite you to to relax and to take in these words and to receive. And then let the Tara that's inside of you really awaken and come to life and, you know, feel you from the inside also. So here we go. So the way I always begin this sadhana practice is to ask people to notice how they're breathing. Not that you have to change your breath, but just to notice it. Is it shallow? Is it deep? To just notice the breath and be so grateful for it. And to realize that it is this force that connects us to all of the entire universe. And to also notice wherever you are, if you're sitting on a chair, a sofa, the floor, wherever you're sitting, to notice all the points of contact that your body has with whatever it is that you're sitting on. And see if you can feel that you are truly supported. You don't have to hold yourself up. See if you can notice any places you might be holding, any contractions, and breathe into those spaces. And in any way you like to do this, imagine, say your feet are on the floor, you're sitting on the floor, that the earth is beneath you, that you're actually, wherever you're sitting, you're still sitting on the earth, and that you are also receiving her support. So you're really grounded and supported in the energy of the earth. And then to allow this image and to come in your mind's eye of space, your most favorite image that gives you that feeling of vastness and unlimited space. And let that image arise. And as you're breathing, realize that you're breathing into and out of that vastness, and that space is actually an image of your own awakened consciousness, which is that vast. And that your breath is bringing in the space from the outside and connecting with the space on the inside. And that is in some ways essentially who you are, is that vast, vast, vast space that contains everything. And to also know that that space just contains everything in potential. Anything can arise out of that space. And what we're going to invite to arise is Tara. And so we imagine her, we visualize her, if you like, in this image that comes from Tibet. But if you have another beloved image of Tara, that's fine too. But just to imagine that Tara is now arising out of space. And here she is appearing in a subtle body of green light, seated on this beautiful lotus throne, this wonderful gaze of compassion and caring, with these wonderful gestures that I just explained. And that we're really going to focus on this left hand at her heart in the gesture of refuge. So we're just going to allow Tara to be with us, very close to us, that we can feel her gaze. And then I would like for you to imagine that both you and she are somehow surrounded, all of your teachers, the holy beings that you really feel connected to, and they may come from several different traditions. Some of them may have been living people who aren't on this plane anymore. Some of them may be people who are living on this plane now. But the holy beings, your mentors, your guides, your teachers, those people who have cared for you and taught you and are part of why you're even here in this practice right this minute, to really call them up and to imagine them surrounding you and surrounding Tara is this large circle. You can invite as many of them as you like. And then imagine that you're surrounded by your friends and loved ones and supporters, and that they are surrounded by their friends and loved ones and supporters. And this just goes on and on and on until we've actually invited an infinite number of beings to participate in the blessings of this practice. And if you have particular concerns for particular people, or it may be groups of people, or it may be, you know, the entire situation of any group that you want to put at Tara's feet, if there's something you're worried about for your own self, just imagine you can put any cares and concerns you have at Tara's feet. And then to think that for all of these beings and with all these beings, that we're going to take refuge in the enlightened consciousness that Tara embodies for us and reveals to us. And that we're going to take refuge in the sacred texts, the wisdom texts of the world's religions that have meant a lot to us, some of them written, some of them oral. And that we're going to take refuge in our sanghas. And many of us belong to more than one sangha. And I think right now we have a spontaneously arising sangha. We can even take refuge in this group that's here together tonight. That we can take refuge in the earth. We can take refuge in our helpful, compassionate ancestors. If there's an ancestor that you're really connected to in a very loving, helpful way, we can invite them. That we can take refuge in silence, the warmth and the breadth of silence. And we can take refuge in our own good hearts. And so we do that. We take refuge. In a way, Tara is she embodies all those aspects of refuge. They all become one in her. And then we really pray that through the practice of giving, generosity, and the other perfections or paramitas, that we might fully awaken in order to be of benefit to all living beings. And then we say the four immeasurables, which is the Tibetan Buddhist version of the loving kindness meditation. We just really pray that all beings would have happiness and the causes of happiness, that all beings would be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow, that all beings would come to realize we cannot be separated from this sacred happiness, this joy of interconnectedness. We cannot be separated from the sacred happiness which is sorrowless, and that we might live in equanimity without too much attachment for those we hold close, or too much aversion for those we keep at a distance, that we might live believing in the equality of all that lives. Om Sabha Shuddha Saradharma Sabha Shuddha. And so we really focus now on Tara, this beautiful, beautiful awakened female Buddha. We imagine that her top three chakras are adorned with the syllables Om Aham, and that the blue syllable hum in her heart begins to radiate blue light into the realm of the wisdom beings and the initiatory deities and invites them to come here. And because they've promised to come when we ask them, we just imagine that they're here, and who they are all these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and the enlightened ones, and all the beings of their mandalas. And in particular, the Dakinis. But these are white, they're sort of goddess figures. They're these feminine energies that can be from one place to the next in an instant. That they are here, and that Tara herself is fully here, embodying and filling out our visualization. And then we ask for purification on Sarva Tathagata Avashitsaman. And here we imagine that this number of dakinis, each one is carrying a white vase. And we've asked the awakened ones for purification, and these dakinis then begin to pour this liquid light into our open crown chakra. And just imagine that. If you could sort of feel and sense this cascade of this substance that's both light, but is so intense that it can feel almost like liquid, pouring through us. And as it does that, it flows through all of our different bodies, our physical body, emotional body, energy body. It just flows through all of our bodies and takes with it any kind of accumulated energetic stress that might be sort of sticking to us in our bodies. And so just imagine this amazing nectar is flowing through you and pulling out any kind of negativity. You can just release it completely through the lower parts of your body. You can imagine it going into the center of the earth if you like, but really the important idea is that it's just leaving you refreshed and filled with this light. And then we imagine that one of these dakinis is actually pouring this same nectar into the open crown chakra of Tara. And that little drop overflows at the top of her head and forms another Buddha, the Buddha Amitabha, whose name means the Buddha of infinite light, light without ceasing. And he appears just above her head in a subtle body of red light. And so we really, really, really have this opportunity now to really focus on green Tara. And here's something I like to do that's a little bit less traditional. Here I like to imagine that we can offer Tara everything. So we can offer her, like what you were talking about a few minutes ago, we can offer her that, oh my goodness, I should be further along than this by now. We can offer her that. We can offer her how angry we were with so-and-so yesterday. We can offer her our greatest hopes. We can offer her our wish for success of our next good project, our creativity. We can offer her our love. We can offer her everything. And just imagine she just takes it all. She doesn't judge it at all. She's just delighted. We're offering everything to the mother. That's what she wants. And so she takes all of our offerings because she's like the great alchemist. She can transform our offerings into wisdom and blessing. She can show us the wisdom behind everything, even the stuff we don't like so much. And let's just then imagine she does that. She transforms our offerings into blessings and then showers us with these blessings. And that empowers us to pass along whatever we've learned or understood to the very next person that we meet. Om Ben Samrita Kundali, Hana Hana Hampe, Om Sabawa Shuddha Sarvadharma Sabawa Shadaham. So here is a really, I think, kind of fun aspect of this practice, that we imagine that in our heart is this blue, wrathful deity. His name is Amrita Kundali. And he just emerges from our heart. And his job is to gobble up any obstacles to our practice. He loves doing this. This is his job. And so it can be the obstacles to this practice that we're doing now. It can be the obstacles to any practice you do, including just the practice of raising your kids or helping someone or whatever all of your practices are. We just imagine that he can gobble up all the obstacles to our practice. And if you know some of them concretely, just imagine you're kind of tossing them out there for him to just take away. So we imagine him doing that, dissolving all the obstacles, a little bit like Ganesh here. And then he dissolves back into our heart chakra where he remains as a protector. And then we take one moment to focus on space again and the syllable Om, which is this approximated sound on this plane to the real sound and vibration of enlightenment, awakened consciousness that permeates the universe. And so we just take a moment to imagine this syllable Om sounding and reverberating throughout time and space and matter, throughout the entire universe. And then we imagine that as it's doing that, it creates these beautiful jeweled vessels. And inside each of those vessels is another syllable Om. And from those vessels now begin to pour out the traditional offering substances of music and water and light and food and incense, flowers, the traditional offerings that are always offered to the deities. It's like a banquet for Tara and all these Buddhas and enlightened beings, all the people who've come to assist us in the practice, that these offerings are just pouring out, clear, unhindered, and unending. Om Aham, Om Aham, Om Aham, Om Aryatara, Sapariwara, Argam, Pajam, Puspe, Dupe, Alge, Ganje, Navaje, Shabda, Pratitse, Soha. And so here's where we would read the praise, and I'll read it again. All gods and non-gods bow down, touching their crowns to your lotus feet. You remove all forms of poverty, both material and spiritual. I prostrate to the mother, Tara. And so now we're going to imagine that in Tara's heart is a beautiful lotus throne with a moon disk and her seed syllable Tam, which is like a large figure 5 with a crescent moon above it. That seed syllable is standing on that moon disk, and that her mantra, Om Tari Tu Tari Turi Soha, is surrounding that syllable. That's her seed syllable. It's just like, again, it's like the mantra, that seed syllable contains her essential energy. And then the mantra begins to kind of turn in this clockwise direction, and then light rays begin to just pour out of it. And it begins to collect up all these blessings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And the blessings come back and they're absorbed into the syllables, and then they just go back out in rays of light and come back into the syllables. So you can imagine, as this is happening, this mantra is spinning out these lights and collecting these blessings and sending out the blessings. However, I really always encourage people, we're not all visualizers, so don't feel any concern at all if you can't visualize this. And I personally can't visualize either the Tibetan or the Sanskrit letters for this mantra. So, it's okay to see them in English if you like that. But the main thing is not to worry about it. The main thing is just to have this intention of this mantra in her heart, spinning out these blessings of light and healing as we're saying the mantra together. And just also imagine, because you're the one who's doing this, you're the one who's invoking this. You can also imagine that this is happening inside your own heart, so that as the light begins to spin, that it fills up your own body before it goes out into the universe, so that you really can feel this is a beautiful practice of self-care and care for the world. So let's say this mantra together. Om Tari Tu Tari Turi Soha, Om Tari Tutari Tur Soha. 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 Om Tare Tutare 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 Soha. So we're going to rest now in the reverberation of the mantras, in the silence. It may happen that you will spontaneously feel prayers arising inside of you for everyone and anyone, and people in particular, or nurses and doctors, or sick people, but whomever. Just let the prayers of your own heart for yourself and any and all beings arise spontaneously in the silence. And so now we're going to begin the process of releasing all these beings that we just can imagine, all the beings we've invited to join us, that we're just releasing them. The friends, the loved ones, the supporters, the teachers, the guides, the guardians, all of our cares and concerns. We just imagine them dissolving into light. And then we can imagine that light actually dissolving into Tara. And then we can imagine Tara dissolving into light, just this vast expression of light just showering out into the entire universe, like a huge display of fireworks. And then imagine that light also cascading down into us. And as it reaches our hearts, it touches the Tara inside of us and awakens it even more fully. So we can feel her presence powerfully inside of us, our own awakened nature. And then finally, we dedicate the practice. We dedicate whatever positive potential, whatever healing energy has been created by our doing this practice together. We dedicate it towards all the people that you may have thought of during your practice, and we dedicate it to the healing and awakening of all beings everywhere, with absolutely no exceptions. And we give thanks. So I have to show you, I sort of thought this would happen because I do believe it's Durga who rides the lion, right? I sort of thought this might happen. I just had a little intuition. His name is Bodhi. He has a brother named Cheetah. So we have Bodhi Cheetah in the cat world in my house. Anyway. So if folks, if you want to unmute yourself, if people have questions, I think Swamini, maybe you can.
Yes, absolutely. So beautiful. Thank you so much, Rachel. Wow. I'm somewhere in the ether.
Okay.
But I did want to show you, I'm just going to share my screen for a second. So yes, Tara in the Hindu tradition is one of the incarnations of Durga that we see in what's called the Dasha Mahavidya, the 10 wisdom goddesses. And so what I did was I took a screenshot of Durga as the warrior next to Durga as she is on your screen. And here you see the two goddesses side by side. Very similar in the way they look, in their jewelry. You see the same.
Oh, yeah.
The difference is that she is the warrior and she is the gentle, compassionate aspect of Tara. Yeah.
Oh, I would love to. I don't know. I just wish I knew how to do a screenshot on this situation, but I don't know if you can possibly take a picture of that and send it to me.
Oh, absolutely.
That's really sort of stunning, though, because you see, as you're pointing out, even though the ornaments are different, the way the ornaments are displayed are the same. Correct. From the wreath around the waist to the. Oh, thank you for that.
Absolutely, and I'd be happy to send that to you. Yes,
that would be great.
Wonderful. And I'll stop sharing that now and go back to our regular screen. And so, who would have some thoughts or reflections for Rachel with regard to Tara? Don't be shy. You can unmute yourself, or you can raise your hand, or you can type into the chat. Jackie.
Hi there. So I have a question. I am absolutely fascinated, to say the least. First of all, thank you so much for everything. Both of you have done an amazing job tonight. This is the first night that I was able to jump in. I was in a cabin without any any internet over the weekend, and I was like, so finally tonight was able to jump in, so I appreciate it. I have a fascinating to me. So I've had my studio here in New Cumberland, Be Present Wellness, and I have 2 different rooms from 2 different landlords, and in both rooms I literally have tankas of green Tara.
Wow.
One was a gift. Out of the 3 tankas that I possess, one is a healing Buddha, and the other 2 are 2 green Taras. And I am a shamanic practitioner, and I've never heard or understood that Tara has a Sumerian background and there is a shamanic whole piece to it. And how I fell into what I'm doing now was 18 years ago. My daughter was suicidal. And so from day one, the shamanism just, kind of took over me, and gracefully here I am on the other side of it. So, and I'm from Brazil, so I'm very multicultural, and I love many different modalities and traditions and all of that. So I would love, I'm definitely getting your book, and I would love if you could share if in your book or if other resources in which I can possibly find some information of shamanic practices with Green Tara.
So I would say a couple of things. One thing is if you go to my website and sign up to get the newsletter,
Okay.
because I'm actually, a week from tonight, I'm starting an online Sangha that anyone can join. And that's being hosted by Bhumi Sparsha, which is an online Sangha led by two amazing lamas, one of whom is African-American, queer. But they're both longtime tantric practitioners, and it's a multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-everything group. And so many people in that group, including myself, call on different traditions. We all have a background in different traditions, and so the idea that you don't have to leave anything behind, I think is really important. And if you there's a web contact form, you can contact me on that form, and I'll send you a couple of book titles. But I'll also say, and I sort of never get used to the, let me plug my book now. But in the book, I really do talk about tracing this history back. And I really was relying on some very good scholarship about this. A particular man named Sam Van Schaik, who did a lot of work on the shamanic aspect of Tibetan Buddhism. Tibetan Buddhism wouldn't be anything if it weren't for shamanism. It's really rooted in it. And so in the book, you'll see the 21 praises and the practices. When you read those praises, you see it. You wouldn't know it so much if you weren't used to some shamanic terminology. But I think that's the reason, and I probably shouldn't go on too long about this, but in that story, that original story where somebody says to her, you should transform yourself on the spot into a man, before I really understood this long, deep history, I used to kind of leave that sentence out because I thought, what is that sentence? And how are people going to understand that sentence? But if you understand shamanism, you understand shape-shifting. And so then I came to think of that story as they were kind of challenging her to say, look, if you're so great, show us your stuff. Let's see you do it on the spot. And she's like, no, because that actually isn't the point. That's just not the point. So there's so many hints to it, but I think it's really beautiful because the whole teaching of Tara and everything that has to do with this Buddhist tradition, and probably with Vedanta also, is that interconnectedness of all things. So of course the religions all have to be interconnected, and these people were all practicing together, in the early first, second centuries and stuff in southern India, and they were shamans like crazy. And they were a lot of them had come from Samaria, so they brought all this goddess worship from Samaria with them, which I just love. I mean, it has made me love the tradition even more, because if I can see all the aspects of all these different things, I've been interested in all of them for 40 years, including Jesus. You can sort of see his shamanic
I do a lot of work with him. Yeah. And it's interesting because my main yoga practice is Kundalini yoga, and to me Kundalini yoga is extremely shamanic.
Yeah, I bet. And I don't know anything about that, but anyway, just write to me and I'll send you a couple of book titles.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I put the link into the chat for everybody for Rachel's website. It's rachelwootenauthor.com. And so the link is there. Are there any other questions or reflections right now? Okay. So Rachel, we have a few minutes left for your section. Would you like to bring us through a closing, or is there something else that you would like to share with everybody? I'll leave it.
I guess, my hope is that this was enjoyable and that it's a good, coming together of the ways in which I've learned to practice in this way and how it's connected to the ways you practice. But I will say that when we got really quiet, it just popped into my head. I mean, I'm on the East Coast. I don't know where you all are, but wherever we are, in 6 minutes, the debates are going to start. And so I just wanted to send a real blessing to, here you can hear it, but to Joe Biden, because I feel like his interest is more for the interest of all beings, but also just to send out a blessing to the commentators, to the moderator, to the people all over everywhere that are watching it, because I think it's so stressful for people to experience these things. And so I really want to pray, literally pray, if we dedicate this practice, towards the healing of America, honestly. So that's really what came to me, and the healing of divisions and the inspiration to join with others for the healing to begin in any ways that it can. That's really what came to me.
That's beautiful, Rachel. It truly is. And there's nothing that I can add to that because it's just so perfect. But what I will suggest is that as individuals who are interested in spirituality, inquiring actively into your spirituality, for those of us who serve our community actively, it really does become important that we do two things. And the first is see clearly. And the second is pray fervently.
Yes. Yeah.
See clearly and pray fervently.
One thing I want to say, I'm a devotee of Mother Mira. And so she is really doing live darshan every day at 1:00 Eastern time. So whatever time zone you're in, live, you just Google live stream Mother Mira and you get it every day. She gazes into the camera and then she sits there for an hour. So she is really offering that into the world. And I was saying this for a different reason than I started out, and now I'm not remembering what it was. Oh my gosh. I know what it was. Is at the end of every one of those things, she had them make a sign that they put in front of the camera. It says, "Don't be afraid, stay calm, and pray," with a big exclamation point. So I think pray fervently to the ancestors, the helpful, compassionate ancestors. Right?
Yes.
I have those two words. And the awakened ones and the avatars, and pray fervently. Thank you. So, I mean, that's really it.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much, Rachel. It's such a gift to have you here. I have thoroughly enjoyed our time together, and what you brought to this Navratri celebration is both uniquely you and uniquely universal.
Yeah.
It's just so beautiful, and it's such a wonderful offering for everybody who's attending and for everybody who might watch the video later, which will be posted up on YouTube and Facebook on our website. But I'm just so grateful that you're doing this work in the world and that you're sharing your wisdom. You have so much to share and so much.
Thank you. Well, I could say the same to you for sure. So thank you for inviting me, and I'm glad to be here, and blessings to everyone.
Blessings to you too. Blessings. too.
Good night.
If anybody has anything else, Gloria Hermos said, thank you, so very informative and soaking it all in. I know. It's like every night after Navratri and then the next morning, I have to kind of ground myself because, you start to float out there into the waters and tether yourself to something in this world. I don't know why we would want to, but
well, something like this is not such a bad idea.
It's true. Yes. Mine are in the hallway waiting for me.
Okay. Good night. Good night. Thank you.
You're welcome. Wonderful. And so now we come to the next portion of our program. And I'm so very excited. I'm just going to make Tomomi a co-host. I would like to welcome Tomomi Asano and tell you a little bit about her. Tomomi Asano is a kirtan wala, a yoga teacher, and Ayurveda practitioner from Japan. So she's joining us from the other side of the world, basically, coming here with us this evening. She's a skilled musician playing the harmonium, the bansuri, and a vocalist. She's offered kirtan at the International Yoga Festival in Rishikesh, India, and leads workshops in Japan. She resides in Hyogo, where she leads weekly yoga classes. And so, Tomomi, I have made you a co-host, and so you can unmute yourself and say hi to everybody.
Hello, namaste. I'm Tomomi from Japan. Oh, I'm nervous now. Thank you for inviting me to join here today. And to God and goodness, to Guruji, to everyone, I thank and play with sing. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not good at English. Sorry.
Oh, wonderful. You're absolutely wonderful. We love you. We love you already. So no worries.
Oh, thank you. First, I want to play Bansuri a few minutes. I play Indian classical music with an Indian bamboo flute. This is Bansuri. Yeah, and I play Raga Hemant. Raga Hemant is the autumn raga. Yeah. Raga is an array of melodic structure with musical motifs considered in the Indian tradition to have the ability to color the mind and affect the emotions of the audience. Yeah. Please listen meditatively and connect with nature and this season and now with sound. you. Next, I think Jaya Shri Ma. Jaya Shri Ma, Kali Kali Ma. Jaya Shri Ma, Jaya Shri Ma, Kali Kali Ma. Jaya Shri Ma, Jaya Shri Ma, Kali Kali Ma. Jaya Shri Ma, Jaya Shri Ma, Kali Kali Ma. Jaya Shri Ma, Ananda Madruga Devi Jagadambe Shri Ma. Ananda Madruga Devi Jagadambe Shri Ma. Om 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 Jagadambe Shri Ma. Jaya Shri Ma, Kali Kali Ma. Jaya Shri Ma, Jaya Shri Ma, Kali Kali Ma. Jaya Shri Ma, Jaya Shri Ma, Kali Kali Ma. Jaya Shri Ma, Jaya Shri Ma, Kali Kali Ma. Jaya Shri Ma, Ananda Madruga Devi Jagadambe Shri Ma. Ananda Madruga Devi Jagadambe Shri Ma. Oh 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 Jagadambe Shri Ma. Jaya Shri Ma, Kali Kali Ma. Jaya Shri Ma, Thank you very much. Oh, thank you. Oh, yeah. May we awaken to the honesty, goodness, nature that is inherent within us. Jagadambe Mata. Shakti Kundalini, Jagadambe Mata. Shakti Kundalini, Jagadambe Mata. Kalima, 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 Mama, Kalima, Mama, Kalima, Kalima, Mama, Kalima, Mama, Kalima, Om Mata, Om Kali, Durga Devi Namo Namaha, Om Mata, Om Kali, Durga Devi Namo Namaha, Shakti Kundalini, Jagadambe Mata. Shakti Kundalini, Jagadambe Mata, Durga Ma, Durga Ma, Durga Ma, Durga Ma, Durga Ma, Ma, Durga Ma, Durga. Ma Durga, Durga Ma Durga Ma Durga, Ma Durga, Om Mata, Om Kali, Durga Devi Namo Namaha, Om Mata, Om Kali, Durga Devi Namo Namaha, Shakti Kundalini, Jagadambe Mata. Shakti Kundalini, Jagadambe Mata, Kalima, 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 Om Mata, Om Kali, Durga Devi Namo Namaha, Om Mata, Om Kali, Durga Devi Namo Namaha, Shakti Kundalini, Jagadambe Mata. Shakti Kundalini, Jagadambe Mata, Kalima, 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 Mama, Kalima, Mama, Kalima, Kalima, Mama, Kalima, Mama, Kalima, Mama, 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 Mama. Amba Mata Jagadambe, Amba Mata. Jagadambe. Namaste. Last song, I play guitar and Loka Samasta Suki no Babantu. 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 ロカサマスタ月のババンロカサマスタ月のババンロカサマスタ月のババンロカサマスタ月のババンロカマスタ月のババンロカサマスタ月のババンロカサマスタ月のババンロカサマスタ月のババンロカサマスタ月のババンロカサマスタ月のババンロカサマスタ月のババント May all being be happy and free. Thank you very much. Finish. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tomomi. So beautiful.
Thank you so much.
We're so honored to have you with us here. What time is it where you are now?
And now 10:30
In the morning or?
in the morning.
It's 9:30 here. So
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
So can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself? How did you come into yoga and this beautiful bhakti practice?
Yeah.
How did you begin practicing?
Maybe 5 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So wonderful to have you here with us. Does anybody have any questions or reflections for Tomomi? Do you have any more mantra that you play for us? You play one more?
One more?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Wow. 何にしようかな。Okay. Amba Babani. Amba Babani Jai Jagadambe. Jai Ambe Jagadambe. Amba Babani Jagarambe. Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma.
Very good.
Amba Bhavani, Jai Jagarambe. 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 Jayambe, Jagarambe. Amba Bhavani, Jagarambe. Jayambe, Jagarambe. Amba Bhavani, Jagarambe. Jai Ma, 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 Jagadambe, Jagadambe, Jai Jai Ma. Ambe, 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 Jagadambe, Jagadambe, Jai Jai Ma. Jai Jai Ma, 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 Jai Jai Ma, Ma, Ma. Amba Bhavani Jai Jagadambe. Amba Bhavani Jai Jagadambe. Amba Bhavani Jai Jagadambe. Amba Bhavani Jai Jagadambe.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank you.
for sharing your devotion with us. We're so blessed. And the Mother is blessing you every moment, every moment. So continue sharing her energy, her love, and her light as only you can. What a
Thank
beautiful.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's take a moment to close the eyes. Take a nice breath in, a nice breath out. Allow yourself to experience a sense of grounding, a sense of relief, a sense of unity. Maybe when you first arrived this evening, you felt a little disheveled from the day. And then arriving, you came into a deep, deep practice of adoring the Mother, of opening your heart to her, of putting the ego to the side for a little while, of letting down your burden. And so just take a moment in silence now and notice how you feel. How do you feel now, immersed in her energy? And very slowly, very gently, begin to open the eyes. And just notice how your senses are behaving. Are they in no rush to start taking in more information, stimulus, distraction? Maybe they're just happy to be visiting with Source. Maybe they're just happy and overjoyed to see the mother, to know the mother, to feel the essence of her. A question that I get asked often from students is, what's it going to be like when I wake up? How am I going to be different? I say, well, it'll be very subtle to you. It may be very stark to the people around you, but to you, it will just be relief. And it'll be the kind of relief that comes through deep, deep love and adoration, through deep faith, through trust, and through a gently intense sense of knowing that where I am right now is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And the battles that I am battling are the battles that will help me grow. And the things that are coming easily are the tools that I can access to be always victorious in the battle against my own tendencies. And if anything, and if everything, that is what tonight's goddess, one of them, Katyayani Ma, that's what she teaches us. She says, whatever comes to you is for you. It's not someone else's name tag on that gift, it's yours. And sometimes it's the form of a lesson, and other times it's the form of a tool, a technique, a protection of sorts. And other times it's just a sweetness. It's just a pleasure. It's just relief. And I don't use the word just to minimize. I mean, it really is that simple. Katyayani teaches us if we come into every day and as many moments as possible in every day with the intention of being courageous and strong, of being a warrior in our own right, in our own life, not against anybody else, but a warrior between, as the Native American traditions put it, between the inner white wolf and the inner dark wolf. Between the part of the self that is healthy and balanced and the part of the self that is not healthy and balanced. The battle that we're fighting is the battle of the capital S self with the egoic self. It is the internal battle of peace versus violence. And the more that we surrender the egoic sense of doing, as in taking authorship, the more we recognize that this battle must be fought, but that the mother is right there with us. We're not fighting this alone. She has our back, and she has our side, and she has our front, and she has our heart. And she's not going to leave us to fail. As a matter of fact, she's going to send us everything that we could possibly need to succeed. Because there's no place else that she would rather us be than aware with her. Aware with her. Not lost without her. So before we come into our final meditation for tonight, Tomorrow night, we have a lovely evening planned. We'll meet at 6:30 as usual. And the wonderful Devi will lead us in Homa. And then we'll have our meditation, followed by satsang. And I'll be talking about tomorrow night's goddess and probably some other things as well. And then that will be followed by Jyotima. We'll be talking tomorrow evening on Shakti's gift of creativity. And then there'll be a Q&A. You all haven't had too many questions this week, though, just one or two. And then we'll come into a kirtan with the wonderful Mirabai Moon. Just such a blessing she is. And then we'll have closing prayers. So tomorrow night will be amazing. And we will dive deep into our devotion. And we will hold a space for each other and for ourselves and for the mother that will make her very happy indeed. And I had some questions about the recordings of the program, and I'm posting them up on Facebook. We had a little technical issue trying to share to Facebook for the live stream. I think I have it straightened out, but not tonight. We'll try it again tomorrow night. So there'll be 3 recordings. The last 2 nights are up already, and tonight's will be up a little bit later. So that if you want to go back and listen to anything again, you certainly can. So let's sit nice and tall and close the eyes. And we'll just take a moment to invoke gratitude. Allowing gratitude to fill us up from the tips of our toes to the top of our head, to fill the heart until it's overflowing. And the nectar of that gratefulness is bathing us in a light that heals us and all that surrounds us. Honor to thee, O great goddess, who gives security to the votaries. Rescue me, plunged in the mire of this world, that I appeal to thee for protection. Thou art the principle of life in all creatures. By thee this world moves. In the beginning of creation, Shiva beheld thee, self-produced, blazing and illuminating the world with a brightness that is hard to behold. Like 10 million orbs of fiery, suddenly produced suns rising at once, filling the whole horizon with the circle of thy arms, bearing a sword, a club, a bow, arrows, and a spear. And thou wast praised by that god Shiva in the following words. Hail to thee, Chandi, Chamunda, Mangala, Tripura, Jaya, Ekanansa, Shiva, Durga, Narayani, Saraswati, Bhadrakali, Mahalakshmi, Siddha, slayer of Ruru. Thou art the Gayatri, Maharajni, Revati, and the dweller in the Vindhya hills. Thou art Uma and Katyayani, and the dweller in Kailasa, the mountain of Shiva. When Skanda and Vashishta and Brahma and the others heard thee praised under these and other titles by Shiva, well skilled in praising, they also praised thee. And by praising thee, O adorable one, immortals, riches, and humans obtained and do now still obtain boons above their desires. So be favorable to me, O bestower of boons, and do thou also receive this tribute of the sacrifice of my body, of my life, and may prosperity befall all. Drawing the hands together in front of the heart. Take a moment now to call to mind any individual or individuals in your life that you feel could use some positive energy, some uplifting energy, some spiritual support, some love, and send that to them. Peacefully call to mind all the healthcare workers throughout our nation and throughout the world who are working so hard to support people at all levels of illness and health. Send them your love and your support. To all the children in the world who are suffering or lost, who are separated from their parents, who are sad and grieving, send them your love and your support. To all the people in the world who are experiencing ignorance, who are experiencing suffering, and who are not seeing with eyes wide open, send them your love and support. In the United States, to all of our politicians, to the ones in charge of making decisions, may they make the correct decisions that help to end suffering and to uplift all in a unity befitting of the Holy Mother. Send them your love and your intentions, your support. And looking within as if you were looking in a mirror, recognizing the areas in your own life where the work is still very daunting and very heavy and thick. Send yourself love, send yourself support. And then lifting the face up and allowing the light to shine down upon you, knowing that that light comes from the Mother. And the warmth is her grace, and the relief is her gift. And we'll lift our voices in one Om. Take a breath in. Om. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May there be peace in the heavens. May there be peace upon this earth. And may there be peace within each one of us. Thank you all so much for being here this evening. Thank you so much to Devi Katyayani, for all of the beautifulness that you bring to this Navratri celebration, sharing Homa with us every night, sharing the beauty of the mantras and the stotras with us, sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you. And to Susan Jyotima, who is not with us right now because she's off doing work for her schooling. Send her some love and some gratitude. Her organizational skills, she put this all together, and she did such a beautiful job bringing people together from across the world, and sharing with us her beautiful voice, her wisdom, and her experience. Thank you to each one of you for being here, for coming in to support the Mother, to support our devotion of the Mother as a community, and to love the Mother. That's what I meant to say, to love the Mother, and to share that love with us, with all of us, and with this world. We're in a place right now in this world where we need Ma. We need to have our eyes open to see clearly, to pray fervently, and to depend upon her to bring us to a place of balance and of rightness. It's going to take her. We're not big enough. We're just not. Thank you to Momi again for sharing your gifts and your devotion with us tonight. Thank you to Dr. Rachel Wooten for being with us tonight. So much love to each and every one of you. Namaste. Bye.